They laughed at the black teen in the suit. Then he bought the company a year later. The sun was already high when Jamal Carter stepped off the subway and emerged into the organized chaos of Midtown Manhattan. The air was thick and sticky with summer heat, the kind that clung to your skin and made dress clothes feel like armor. But he didn't care. Not today. His reflection in the mirrored window of a Starbucks showed a boy standing too straight, too stiff, in a navy blue suit too. Sizes too big. The jacket had shoulder pads, the lapels wide like something out of an old movie. His father's suit. The only one in the house. The shoes polished within an inch of their lives were tight across his toes. He adjusted his tie, took a breath, and turned toward the glass skyscraper that loomed ahead. Grant & Co. He whispered it in his mind like it was something holy. The letters on the revolving door gleamed gold in the sunlight. Inside, the lobby was marble and glass and so white it hurt his eyes. Everyone he passed moved like they'd been born here, bred for this. He tried to mimic the pace, the posture, but the stiffness in his shoulders gave him away. A young woman at the reception desk barely glanced up. Intern orientation? Down the hall, conference room C. He nodded, mumbled a thank you, and followed the signs until he found a door cracked open, the sound of laughter spilling out. He paused, then stepped in. The room was a sea of khakis, designer loafers, pencil skirts, and blazers tailored to fit teenage ambition. Every face turned when he entered. For a second, there was silence. Then stifled snorts, sideways glances. One boy whispered something to the girl beside him, and she laughed, covering her mouth with a manicured hand. Jamal found an empty seat in the back, pretending not to notice. But his ears were burning. He pulled out a notepad from his bag-worn leather, gifted by his mother, and jotted the date at the top, June 12th, first day. Then, in smaller letters, "Don't give them a reason to laugh again." The door swung open, and a tall man in a slim gray suit entered, radiating authority like heat. His hair was slicked back, silver at the temples, and he wore a Grant & Co. pin on his lapel. He looked at the interns as if scanning for potential. "Morning. I'm Eric Grant, program lead. Some of you know me. If you don't yet, you will." The room straightened under his gaze. "Welcome to Grant & Co., a summer finance immersion program, not a babysitting gig, not a vacation. We're here to expose you to real work, real expectations, real consequences. The future leaders of this industry will come from rooms like this." He paused, eyes scanning the room. They flicked over. Jamal hesitated just a moment, then moved on. "Let's be honest," he continued. "Some of you are here because of connections, some because of sheer skill, and some because we have diversity quotas to fill." A few students laughed, not loudly, but enough. Jamal's pen stopped moving. He didn't lift his head. He just stared at the blank space on the page and wrote slowly, "Don't react." The day passed in a blur of presentations and icebreaker activities. During a group exercise about stock portfolios, Jamal's suggestion to balance risk using long-term dividend stocks was met with smirks. "Is that what they teach you in public school?" A boy named Trevor said, not even trying to lower his voice. At lunch, Jamal sat alone, eating a sandwich wrapped in foil while the others swiped credit cards for overpriced salads. No one joined him. No one spoke to him except one girl, Emily, who offered a polite nod but nothing more. Back in the conference room, the interns were divided into small groups. Eric walked by Jamal's table and said, "You'll be with Group D, that's our ... observation group." He didn't explain what that meant, and Jamal didn't ask, but it became clear within minutes. Group D didn't get assigned projects or mentors. They were told to sit in on meetings, take notes, and absorb the atmosphere. In other words, They weren't expected to contribute. By 4 p.m., Jamal's tie felt like a noose. He slipped into the restroom, splashed cold water on his face, and stared at himself in the mirror. The suit hung on his narrow frame like it belonged to a ghost. He looked tired. Not from the work, but from pretending it didn't hurt. That night, on the subway home, Jamal kept his eyes on his notebook. The sounds of the train faded behind the noise in his head, the laughter, the whispers, the dismissiveness in Eric's voice. When he finally got home, his mother was cooking rice and beans. The smell warm and grounding. His father was fixing something in the hallway with a flashlight between his teeth. No one asked how it went. He didn't offer. In his room, Jamal opened his notebook again. Beneath the notes, beneath the crossed-out investment ideas and doodles of stock graphs, he wrote, "I will not let them decide my value." He underlined it. Then again. And again. Jamal arrived every morning 20 minutes early. The first week had taught him exactly where he stood. Group D wasn't given real work, just errands, fetch coffee, refill toner, clean whiteboards, smile and stay out of the way. But Jamal wasn't there for their approval anymore. He was there to learn whether they liked it or not. He made it a mission to watch, to listen, and to write everything down. Every abbreviation, every acronym, every phrase he didn't understand. On the train ride home, he'd search them up, cross-reference terms, and build his own silent curriculum. He had filled half his notebook by the end of the second week. No one noticed. Or if they did, they didn't care. He moved quietly through the office, blending into the corners like furniture. That suited him just fine. One day, while delivering coffee to a conference room, he lingered by the door just a moment too long. Double quotes. If we leverage the bond curve against the volatility index. Not if the hedge fund pulls out, Greg. Then we need to reassess our exposure to tech stocks. Jamal stood still, the tray in his hands growing heavy. His heart pounded with the rhythm of words he was only starting to understand. "Hey!" He jumped, a deep voice behind him. Turning around, he saw a tall black man in a dark blue security uniform leaning against the wall, a graying beard, wrinkles. By the eyes not from frowning, but from years of watching everything. "You eavesdropping, son?" the man asked. Jamal fumbled. I was just listening, trying to learn." The man smiled, not unkindly. "And what exactly do you think they're going to teach you through a closed door?" Jamal hesitated, then shrugged. "More than what I'm getting inside the room." The guard chuckled. "Fair point." He extended a hand. "Leonard. Mr. Leonard to most people. You?" "Jamal." "Well, Jamal, I suggest next time you want to learn, don't stand where people can trip over you." They shared a smile. That was the beginning. Mr. Leonard wasn't just a security guard, Jamal found out. He was a man with a story, once a senior accountant at a major firm. Until one audit uncovered inconsistencies tied to a powerful client. When he reported them, he was fired, not the client. Rumors were spread. Licenses revoked. Reputation destroyed. That's how the game's played when your skin don't match the furniture. Leonard had said, eyes fixed on something distant. But I didn't let it end me. Just changed the way I walk the path. He started mentoring Jamal in his own way, teaching him how to see office politics for what they were, warning him which execs would step on a kid like him without blinking, and which ones just like to hear themselves talk. "Keep your eyes open," Leonard said once. "People will tell you who they are. All you gotta do is listen." One afternoon, Jamal passed by the workstation of Emily Tran, the only junior associate who'd ever acknowledged him with a full sentence. She was staring at her monitor with narrowed eyes, clearly frustrated. He hesitated. "You okay?" Emily sighed. "I've been trying to fix this formula for half an hour and it keeps giving me circular reference errors. Mind if I look?" She blinked. You know Excel? Asterisk enough. She moved aside skeptically. Jamal scanned the sheet, tracing the logic chain until he spotted the loop. You reference the subtotal in your own dependent cell, he said. You're summing a range that includes itself. She blinked again. Wait, what? Jamal highlighted the error, rewrote the function, and hit enter. The error disappeared. Emily's mouth opened slightly. How did you? I practiced, Jamal said simply. She looked at him differently after that. The next day she slid him a copy of a basic valuation model. If you want, study this. It's the kind of thing we use in client meetings. From then on, every few days she'd give him something: an old pitch deck, a risk analysis, a mock earnings report. Sometimes she even stayed late to explain things. Not like a teacher. More like a big sister with a soft spot. You're not supposed to be invisible, you know, she told him once. Jamal smiled. I'm not. I'm just playing their game until I learn the rules. The opportunity came on a Wednesday afternoon in the form of a mock investment pitch. Each intern group was assigned a fictional fund to manage. Group A had clean energy. Group B had AI. Group C had biotech. Group D wasn't assigned anything, but Jamal prepared anyway. He built a case for investing in financial tech solutions for underbanked populations using real data, real trends, even modeling projected growth. It took him a week of nights and weekends. When the mock presentations began, Group D was told to observe. Jamal didn't care. During a lull between presentations, he raised his hand. I have something I'd like to present, he said. His voice steadied. Eric turned slowly. This isn't a talent show. It's not a joke, sir. I spent the last week building an analysis. I think it's worth 5 minutes. The room grew quiet. Eric stared at him. Fine, 5 minutes. Jamal walked to the front, plugged in a USB, and projected his slides. He spoke clearly. He moved through his data, used terminology he'd picked up, made sure his pitch was sharp. At first, there was silence. Then a murmur. Emily's eyes were wide. Even Trevor, from Group B, leaned forward. Jamal wrapped up. So based on this model, a $10 million investment now could yield triple returns by year 5, while also expanding access to financial services in underserved areas. A beat of silence. Then before anyone could respond, Eric clapped. Once, not out of praise, but finality. Thank you. That'll be all. Jamal stood still. Eric gestured. Please return to your seat. And just like that, it was over. No questions. No feedback. Just dismissal. After the session, Emily came over, eyes fierce. That was better than half the groups up there. Jamal didn't respond. He felt something in his chest, not anger. Exactly, but a kind of quiet heat. He took the subway home in silence. That night, he didn't open his notebook. Instead, he opened a blank document on his laptop and started writing code. He didn't know what he was building yet. But he knew this. He was done waiting for permission. The last day at Grant & Co. passed without ceremony. There were no farewells for the interns in Group D, just a few quick handshakes, some obligatory smiles, and a closing speech from Eric Grant that barely mentioned their names. Jamal lingered near the back, watching as the chosen ones snapped group selfies and exchanged LinkedIns. No one asked him for his, but he didn't need their validation. He walked out of the building for the last time, past the security desk, and nodded at Mr. Leonard. The old man returned it with a grin. So what's next, son? Jamal didn't hesitate. I'm building my own table. Leonard leaned in slightly. Then you'd better learn to swing a hammer like your life depends on it. Back in his tiny apartment in East Harlem, the air was thick with August heat. The fan rattled in the window, barely keeping up. Jamal sat cross-legged on the floor, his old laptop overheating beneath his fingers. He had cleared everything from his desk except for one thing, a folded page from his notebook. On it were 4 underlined words: equity, technology, access, trust. That was the seed. He called it EquiChain. The idea was simple, at least on paper. Create a digital platform that would allow low-income families to access simplified financial tools, micro-savings, budgeting templates, credit-building tips, and small-dollar investment options. No jargon, no hidden fees. Just clarity and access. But the simplicity ended there. He didn't know how to build a financial app. He didn't know any investors. He didn't even have enough money to replace his laptop's battery. What he did have was time, grit, and a burning need to prove that he wasn't just a summer intern. He was a creator. Jamal spent the first month of fall teaching himself to code: Python, JavaScript, Firebase, Apis, tutorials. Ran all night in the background while he experimented with open source templates. He studied design thinking in between classes, sketched interface ideas in his math notebook, and built pitch decks while his classmates went out on weekends. He started small, created a demo where users could simulate savings goals. Then he added a basic budget tracker, one feature at a time, but he knew he couldn't do it alone. He reached out to 2 classmates, Nadia, a shy girl from his calculus class with a talent for UI design, and Luis, who'd won the school's robotics competition 2 years in a row. Together, they began spending every evening at the library, coding and brainstorming. Nadia designed the interface to feel like a conversation, intuitive, friendly, non-threatening. Luis handled database logic and backend security. Jamal focused on user behavior, finance modeling, and integration. There were days when they argued about fonts, colors, or how to handle transaction data. But underneath it all was one shared belief: this mattered. Sometimes, when they stayed too late, the janitor would come by and joke, "You kids building the next PayPal?" Jamal always smiled. Something better. Still, the road was uphill. No funding meant no marketing. Hosting fees drained Jamal's part-time job income. His mother started noticing the bags under his eyes. He told her it was just school stress. What kept him going were the nights he couldn't sleep, when the memory of the laughter at Grant & Co. echoed in his mind. Or the moment Eric Grant cut off his presentation without a word. Those became fuel, and Leonard's voice rang in his head constantly. Nobody gives you the chair. You build it yourself. In January, Jamal submitted EquiChain to the National Next Gen Startup Competition. Thousands of entries. Less than 2 dozen would make it to the finals. He didn't expect to hear back. Then one afternoon in March, he got the email, "Congratulations. You've been selected as a finalist in the Next Gen National Startup Showcase. You will present EquiChain before a panel of industry experts and angel investors in Washington, D.C." He stared at the screen for a full minute before he could breathe. Nadia screamed when he told her. Luis just grinned and said, "Told you so." They rushed to polish the prototype, rehearsed the pitch until their voices were hoarse. Jamal borrowed a better suit from a community mentor. This one actually fit. In D.C., they stood before a room of professionals who didn't laugh. Jamal spoke with calm clarity. He told his story of East Harlem, of being underestimated, of how millions were being left out of financial progress because no one thought they mattered. He ended with a demo of the app, showing a simple $20 savings plan turn into a 3-month rent safety net for a single mother. The room was quiet when he finished. Then someone clapped. Then everyone did. They didn't win first place, but they didn't need to. 2 days later, Jamal received an email from a man named Marcus Delaney, a tech investor known for backing Underdog ideas. The subject line read, interested in helping you scale EquiChain. But that wasn't the only email he received. The second came from an address he hadn't seen since last summer. Eric.grant@grantandco.com. The message was short, polished, professional. We were impressed by your EquiChain concept. Grant & Co. would like to discuss acquiring your intellectual property rights to the idea. Initial offer attached. Jamal clicked on the PDF. It was a lowball, a calculated insult dressed up as opportunity. He leaned back in his chair, a strange smile forming on his lips. It was happening. The world was finally noticing. And now, for the first time, he would decide who got a seat at his table. The boardroom hadn't changed. Same cold marble table. Same oversized screens glowing with graphs and damage reports. The same skyline of New York glittering through the glass wall. Indifferent as ever, Jamal stepped in, his EquiChain team trailing behind Louise in a crisp blue blazer, Nadia clutching her tablet, and two new hires from their growing development wing. The receptionist had checked their names twice, skeptically, as if unable to believe that someone who looked like him could possibly be expected at a Grant & Co. executive meeting. But now, here he was, back through the front door. He took the seat at the head of the table. Across from him sat half a dozen senior executives, some murmuring nervously, others avoiding eye contact entirely. At the far end of the table sat a familiar man in a tailored gray suit, flipping through the printout of a financial report. Eric Grant. He hadn't looked up yet. The room was thick with attention that only came when the powerful found themselves suddenly, awkwardly, at someone else's mercy. The crisis had hit Grant & Co. fast and hard. A miscalculated algorithm had passed faulty data into one of their flagship investment funds, triggering cascading errors across portfolios. Regulators were swift to respond, slapping the firm with multi-million-dollar penalties for negligence. Clients withdrew. Stocks dipped. The media pounced. Behind the scenes, someone in their legal department had found Jamal's name. EquiChains. Fintech models, the internal memo read, have real-time audit capabilities and built-in data integrity fail-safes. They didn't just need a patch. They needed a lifeboat. And the kid they had once sent for coffee was now the one holding it. Good morning, Jamal said calmly. His voice cut through the room like a clean line, drawn in permanent ink. Some of the executives nodded stiffly. A few looked relieved he wasn't wearing sneakers. One even dared a fake smile. Eric finally looked up. His eyes rested on Jamal for a moment. Then blinked. The silence stretched. I'm sorry, have we met? Eric asked, his brow furrowing slightly. Jamal leaned forward. Jamal Carter. You may remember me as the intern who wasn't allowed to pitch at the mock investment session 2 summers ago. Eric's jaw tightened. The color drained slightly from his face. Oh, he said softly. That was you? Jamal didn't smile. Yes, that was me. The room was dead quiet. I believe the agenda today was a proposal for partnership, Jamal continued, flipping open his folder. EquiChain has reviewed your internal systems and identified 17 major vulnerabilities. We have proposed an integration that would restore compliance within 6 weeks, with optional real-time reporting tools built in. One of the older executives coughed nervously. We're very grateful you've considered assisting us, Mr. Carter. Eric cleared his throat. Yes, well, past misunderstandings aside, your platform is impressive. The board has approved a long-term licensing deal. We'd like to offer your company full partnership privileges for the next fiscal year, including a dedicated integration office on site. Jamal closed the folder. He looked around the room, then back at Eric. I appreciate the offer, he said evenly, but EquiChain won't be accepting partnership terms. A murmur ran through the room. Eric leaned forward. Excuse me? Jamal looked him square in the eye. We're not here to join you. We're here to acquire. The air left the room. Jamal continued, his voice smooth and precise. We propose to buy out Grant & Co.'s failing technology division, including your data integrity systems, cloud architecture, and your pending AI initiative. We'll rebrand it as EquiChain Labs. In return, Grant & Co. gets full access to EquiChain's compliance suite for 3 years. We assume operational control and take the division off your books. Eric was speechless. You want to buy our tech division? He asked, incredulous. Jamal didn't blink. Yes, cash and equity mix. Terms are in the folder. This is outrageous, one of the execs snapped. You're barely out of college, Louise leaned in. And yet your systems are still crashing. Eric's voice lowered. You realize what you're asking? I do, Jamal said. I'm offering you a way out of a public collapse. And I'm offering my team a way to scale on a foundation we know we can improve. He leaned back slightly, eyes steady. You spent years deciding who was worthy to sit at your table. I decided to build my own. Eric stared at him. There was no anger in his eyes now, just something between awe and disbelief. The man who had once barely registered Jamal's existence was now negotiating for his company's survival. Minutes ticked by as the executives whispered behind folders, exchanged glances, argued in sharp whispers. Finally, the legal counsel stood and nodded silently. Eric opened the folder again, exhaled, and reached for a pen. He signed. Jamal did too. And just like that, the ink dried on history. The EquiChain team walked out of Grant & Co. headquarters as the new majority owners of what used to be the forgotten tech branch. The press would announce it by week's end. Jamal paused near the elevator and glanced toward the lobby. Mr. Leonard wasn't there anymore. He'd retired a few months earlier, but Jamal imagined what the old man would have said if he saw this moment. Told you, son, if they won't give you a chair, you build the whole damn table. And now, Jamal wasn't just sitting at it. He owned it. The new EquiChain Labs headquarters looked nothing like the icy monolithic floors of Grant & Co. No marble. No glass walls meant to intimidate. Just open space, exposed brick, bright plants, and walls filled with handwritten ideas. There were laughter, arguments, moments of silence where minds turned like gears. It was alive. And Jamal Carter, 20 years old, now helmeted all. In the weeks following the acquisition, he had done what most of the board hadn't believed. He would dismantle the hierarchy, flatten the structure, and rebuild it from the ground up. He didn't just want a rebrand. He wanted a redefinition. The first wave of hires surprised the industry. Not Ivy League grads or golden recommendations. Jamal opened internships to state schools, community colleges, and alternative education programs. He handpicked coders from online boot camps, recruited black and brown analysts, women in tech who'd been passed over, and veterans like Mr. Leonard who had once been driven out. We're not just hiring talent, Jamal had said at the internal town hall. We're correcting history. Within months, EquiChain's name wasn't just buzzing through Wall Street, it was everywhere. Bloomberg called him the reverse takeover kid. Forbes put his photo under a headline, From Intern to Owner, Jamal Carter and the New Face of Finance. But it wasn't the headlines that stuck with him. It was the emails, hundreds of them. From young students, single mothers, teachers, ex-convicts. People who'd seen his story and finally felt seen themselves. They didn't want a handout. They wanted a chance. Jamal answered everyone. One morning, Jamal got a text from Luis. He's at the door. No name. But Jamal knew. He left his meeting mid-sentence and rode the elevator down. Outside the main entrance, Mr. Leonard stood holding a small cloth cap in his weathered hands. His posture was straight, but his eyes were glassy. Jamal opened the door. Himself, Mr. Leonard, he said softly. The older man shook his head slowly, overwhelmed. When I told you to build your own chair, I didn't know you'd build a whole damn city. Jamal smiled and wrapped him in a hug. Leonard trembled slightly. They finally listened, huh? No, Jamal said. We stopped waiting for them to. He took Leonard inside, gave him the tour, introduced him to every department. And then, in front of the whole team, he announced the final appointment of the quarter. Mr. Leonard will serve as our honorary financial ethics advisor. No one knows more about the price of dignity in this industry than him. The applause was thunderous. And for the first time since his forced retirement, Leonard stood tall again, not in uniform, but in respect. Weeks passed. One rainy afternoon, Jamal stood at the glass door of the lobby, watching the city pulse and churn as it always had. He sipped lukewarm coffee and reviewed a product roadmap on his tablet. Then he saw him. Boy, no older than 17, standing just outside the building's entrance, soaked, hugging a thin leather folder to his chest. His suit was too big, fraying at the cuffs. Shoes scuffed, face tense. Jamal didn't need to ask. He saw himself. He stepped out into the rain. You here for the open internship session? Jamal asked gently. The boy nodded, startled. Yes, I'm sorry. I was told to come early, but they said I had to wait. Jamal looked him over, then smiled. What's your name? Deshaun Riley, from Queens. Jamal extended a hand. Well, Deshaun from Queens, you've already passed the hardest test. You showed up. Deshaun hesitated. I know I don't look the part. My uncle lent me this suit. I tried to iron it. Jamal chuckled. The suit doesn't define the man, Deshaun, but the dream might. He put a hand on the boy's shoulder and opened the door. Let's get you inside. The real interview starts when you sit at the table. That evening, long after the team had gone home, Jamal sat alone in his office. The city lights blinked through the windows like stars trying to find a place to land. He scrolled through a mock-up for a new EquiChain feature, one designed by a first-gen college student named Yasmin, who'd once been told she wasn't finance material. He smiled. All of it, wasn't just about proving anyone wrong. It was about making it impossible for anyone like him to be doubted again. Because the best revenge isn't a takedown. It's ownership. Ownership of your name, your purpose. Your legacy. And in the silence, Jamal whispered the line he wished someone had said to him that first day, long ago, when the laughter tried to bury his confidence. You belong here. And now, so will thousands more. And thank you for listening to They Laughed at the Black Teen in a Suit. Then he bought the company a year later. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful and uplifting stories. See you in the next episode.